Good evening and welcome to Local Views. My name is Lawrence Gray. We've entitled this segment Straight Talk. The next item that seems to be on the agenda right now are no shows on the public payroll or little shows or people put on the public payroll to finance extramarital affairs. Now, if there's one thing I know with personal certainty, it's that this business of elected public officials having extramarital affairs, having mistresses, having girlfriends, or hiring prostitutes, one way or the other, it's going to come back to taxpayers' money being abused, stolen, or misused. This evil that we face has a handmaiden. That handmaiden has been the major media, for instance, in New York State, that has known for decades what was going on and hasn't really done anything about it. Now, if you'll bear with me, I'd like to prove my point. In 1981, in an Albany courtroom, right down from the state capitol, I personally tried and convicted a New York City assemblyman by the name of Vincent Riccio. Throughout the trial, there was made mention of a state senator, Joseph Pisani, Republican conservative from Westchester. Essentially, what I convicted him through the auspices of the senator, putting no-show employees on the payroll of the temporary state commission on child welfare so he could support a mistress. Only the Gannett chain of newspapers sent a cub reporter to cover this very important trial. The New York Times, Newsday, the Post, the Daily News, they weren't interested. They didn't cover the trial. What was the trial about? The trial was about stealing Senate, Assembly, payroll and money, in this form a temporary state commission on child welfare money, in order to finance an extramarital affair. So at least as of the spring of 1981, we can all agree that all of the major media knew that this was going on. Now, how is it done today? Because it's being done today while you watch me talk. You're familiar with Governor Spitzer. You are perhaps not so familiar with what was obvious, namely, it was the federal, not the state authorities, who caught Governor Spitzer in, shall we say, flagrante delicto, as the Latins say. Now we have a governor replacement, Governor Patterson, who every day we see a new revelation in the newspapers. Is it limited to them? Not on your life. Why are the Republicans in the Assembly and the Senate conspicuously silent at this time? Because, frankly, I won't say all of them are doing it, but there's far too many of them that are doing it. Here's how they do it. Take a Republican senator from Brooklyn. He will put the girlfriend or the mistress, whatever term you want to call her, on his payroll, his Senate payroll. The mistress, the girlfriend, lives in St. Lawrence County, let's say, way up by the Canadian border. Now that woman has a heck of a commute to work, assuming she was working. There will be a Democrat assemblyman located somewhere in St. Lawrence County who will put the Republican senator from Brooklyn, his mistress or girlfriend, on his assembly payroll, a Democratic payroll. They're what are known in the trade as crossovers. So it's much harder for the press to track them down. Now, how much money is involved? Probably in a legislative session, you're talking between $20,000 and $30,000 of your money that's being stolen to support a mistress. Because it is established in the law of the state of New York that one who causes the placement of a person on the public payroll of the state of New York is by inescapable inference representing that that person is going to perform work, labor, and services for the money that is paid them. A no-show is essentially a name, an address, and a social security number whereby that will be placed on the payroll, and the checks will flow, and the checks will be cashed, and Lord knows what's going to happen with the money after it. Now, in the case I told you that I tried, one of the principals was the State Senator Joseph Pisani, who, in addition to being a high-ranking Republican senator in the Senate, was also made chairman of the Temporary State Commission on Child Welfare. Now, this particular commission is one of many commissions that are financed by our legislature in Albany, and all they are patronage puddles, no-show puddles. It's a way of giving a high-ranking senator or assemblyman extra payroll to play around with. In the case of Senator Pisani with this Commission on Child Welfare, the evidence showed that he bought a summer home in Blooming Grove, New York, by putting a no-show on that commission's payroll to the extent of the purchase price of the summer home in Blooming Grove, New York. He was also principal in a company called Colonial Mint, which was supposed to rival the Franklin Mint that you see on TV. Well, the Colonial Mint wasn't doing so well financially, so what he did was he took a couple employees from Colonial Mint and he put them on the Temporary State Commission on Child Welfare payroll as a means of financing his private business. There's an old saying in Albany, when the Republicans control the Senate, we have temporary state commissions. We used to control the Senate many years ago. We had joint legislative committees, JLCs. It's the same thing. It's a way of augmenting the legislative payroll without the press and the public being aware that they're paying for more than a Senate or an Assembly. And as I said, they're basically patronage puddles and way of ripping off taxpayer dollars.